Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another plunge into the world of UAPs?
Always ready to dive in.
Awesome. So today we're cracking open Chapter 5 of Conspiracy Theories, or spoiler alerts, the UAP Files. It's by L. Robinson. And let me tell you, this chapter is a wild ride.
Oh, this one is a doozy.
It really is. We're talking about intergalactic diplomacy, people.
The idea that governments might be, negotiating with extraterrestrials.
I know, right? Sounds something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Uh-huh.
But Robinson lays out some pretty compelling arguments.
They do make you think.
For sure. So I guess the first question is, could governments really be in talks with aliens? I mean, is that even remotely possible?
Well, it's certainly a fascinating concept to consider, and I think the chapter pushes us to think beyond just the question of, are we alone? You know?
Yeah, it's like, forget just first contact. What if we're already at the treaty signing stage?
Exactly. And that raises a whole other set of questions, like who's representing Earth in these negotiations?
Right. Who gets to decide what we give and what we get in return? It's mind-boggling.
And that's where the whole concept of earthly sovereignty comes into play.
Which, by the way, Robinson spends a good chunk of the chapter unpacking.
It's a crucial aspect of this whole intergalactic diplomacy thing.
Okay, but let's say, just for a second, that these agreements exists. What's the deal? What's in it for us? And what are we giving up?
Well, the book uses this phrase, cosmic bargain, implying a trade of sorts.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, we give them something, they give us something.
Exactly. And one of the things Robinson suggests is a potential exchange of technology.
Oh, like we get some super advanced alien tech in exchange for what? Access to our planet, our silence? I mean, what could we possibly offer that they'd want?
Well, one example the chapter dives into is this whole thing about element 115.
Element 115, what's that?
It's, it's not something found naturally on Earth, but some theories suggest it's the key to anti-gravity technology.
Whoa, anti-gravity, like the stuff we see in those UAP videos.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea is that maybe certain governments have gained access to element 115.
And in exchange, they've given these extraterrestrials something in return. Maybe something as simple as allowing them to, observe us or access to certain areas.
It's definitely one of the more intriguing aspects of this whole cosmic bargain idea.
Okay, so we've got these hypothetical agreements, maybe some tech swapping going on, and a whole lot of questions about who's calling the shots. But where's the evidence? Is there anything concrete that suggests these agreements are actually happening?
That's where things get a bit murky. The book delves into a few alleged incidents, but one that stands out is the supposed Eisenhower briefing.
The Eisenhower briefing? Wait, I think I've heard of this. Didn't Eisenhower supposedly meet with aliens?
That's the story. Supposedly in not one meeting, but 3 at Holloman Air Force Base in the 1950s.
3 meetings? Whoa, that's not just a quick hello. What are they supposedly talking about?
Well, accounts claim that the meetings focused on nuclear disarmament.
Really? Like the aliens were concerned about our nukes?
That's what the book suggests. They allegedly expressed concern over humanity's development of nuclear weapons and urged Eisenhower to put a stop to further testing.
Wow, that's pretty intense. Imagine being Eisenhower, Cold War tensions are high, and then you've got aliens showing up with a nuclear warning.
It's a pretty wild story.
But is there any truth to it? I mean, is this something we should take seriously, or is it more like an elaborate campfire tale?
It's tough to say for sure. The Eisenhower briefing, like many of these accounts, relies on eyewitness testimony and leaked documents, the authenticity of which is still being debated.
Right, so it's all pretty speculative.
It is. But even so, I think the Eisenhower briefing highlights a key theme that runs through this whole chapter.
Which is?
That UAPs might not just be visitors, but rather, emissaries. Or even watchdogs,
Like they're here to observe us. And maybe even influence our actions.
It's an interesting perspective.
So maybe they're not here to conquer us, but more like, concerned neighbors making sure we don't blow ourselves up and take them out in the process.
It's a possibility, but then of course it raises even more questions. Like, if there is some kind of oversight happening, what are the limits of their intervention? Do they just observe? Or are they actively trying to, steer us in a particular direction?
And if so, what is that direction?
Yeah.
And does it align with, what's best for humanity?
These are some big, big questions.
They really are. And honestly, they kind of make my head spin a little. But let's unpack this a bit further, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
If these extraterrestrial beings are concerned about things like nuclear weapons, it suggests they have some understanding of our society and our potential for, self-destruction. So what else might they be observing? And how might that be shaping their approach to us?
Great question, and it's something the book touches on. The idea that these hypothetical agreements might not just be about technology exchange or, resource gathering. They might also involve cultural observation.
Well, that's interesting. Like they're studying us.
Imagine a civilization that's been watching us for centuries, if not longer. They'd have a pretty good grasp of our history, our strengths, our weaknesses, the challenges we face.
It's almost like, I don't know, like having a really advanced long-term research project focused on humanity.
It's an intriguing thought.
But what does it mean for US? Are we just lab rats in some cosmic experiment? Or is there potential for a more, collaborative relationship?
That's where we get into some really mind-bending territory. Chapter 5 introduces this concept of directed evolution.
Directed evolution, what's that?
The idea that these hypothetical agreements could involve extraterrestrial beings subtly nudging us along a certain evolutionary path, influencing our development without directly interfering.
So not outright control, but maybe a gentle push in a direction they think is, beneficial.
Something like that.
It's fascinating, but also a little unnerving.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about free will and whether we're really in control of our own destiny.
It's a big ethical dilemma, for sure. And it's something Robinson grapples with in the chapter. I mean, if these agreements exist and if they involve some level of influence over our development, then we have to ask ourselves some tough questions.
Like what?
Like, what are the limits of acceptable intervention? At what point does guidance become manipulation? And how do we ensure that, humanity's best interests are being represented, even if we're dealing with beings far more advanced than us?
Okay, so we've got secret agreements, maybe technology swaps, the question of who speaks for Earth is still hanging out there, and now the possibility of directed evolution. This deep dive is getting pretty deep.
It is, isn't it? But before we go any further, I think it's important to step back for a moment.
Okay, good point. Take a breath.
And remember that much of what we're discussing here is highly speculative. We're dealing with theories, interpretations, alleged incidents that are, difficult to verify.
Right, we're basically in the realm of what-ifs and maybes. But that doesn't mean these ideas aren't worth exploring. In fact, I think it's even more important to grapple with these questions precisely because they push us to think outside the box. To consider possibilities that, really challenge our current understanding of the world.
I agree. It's through these explorations that we might uncover new insights, even if those insights ultimately lead us to different conclusions than the ones, presented in the book.
So what's next on our journey into intergalactic diplomacy? What else does Robinson throw at us?
Well, Chapter 5 goes on to explore a few other fascinating aspects of this theory, including the potential implications for human spirituality and belief systems.
Oh, now that's a topic I'm really curious about.
Yeah.
How might contact with extraterrestrial intelligence impact our understanding of, religion, philosophy, our place in the universe? The big questions.
That's where we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready for round 2.
Let's do it.
Unlock the secrets and decide for yourself. Dive into the Conspiracy Theories or Spoiler Alert series, now with all 4 groundbreaking books available. Explore the untold stories, hidden truths, and shocking revelations. Get your copies today and join the movement.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive even deeper into this whole intergalactic diplomacy thing. We left off talking about potential agreements, technology swaps, even the idea of directed evolution, which let me tell you, is still kind of freaking me out.
It's definitely one of the more thought-provoking aspects of this whole theory.
But now we're moving into even more mind-bending territory, the potential impact of all this on human spirituality and belief systems. This is where it gets really interesting for me. I mean, think about it. If we find out we're not alone in the universe, that we've maybe been interacting with other civilizations for who knows how long, wouldn't that fundamentally change how we view ourselves, our place in the cosmos?
It's a huge question, and one that Robinson doesn't shy away from in Chapter 5.
So, what's the impact on religion? I mean, a lot of religions put humanity at the center of creation.
Exactly. The idea of a God who created us in his image, well, it might need some serious rethinking if we discover that creation extends far beyond our planet, that intelligence exists in forms we can't even fathom.
Right. It's like suddenly the library of existence just got a whole lot bigger. But it's not just about challenging existing religions, right? What about the possibility that contact with ET could lead to entirely no-W spiritual or philosophical frameworks?
The book definitely explores that possibility. Imagine encountering a civilization with a completely different understanding of consciousness, the afterlife, the nature of reality itself.
Whoa. Okay, now we're getting really out there.
It could be a paradigm shift, a merging of ideas, or maybe even the birth of entirely new belief systems that incorporate these cosmic perspectives.
It kind of makes me think of all those ancient astronaut theories, the ones that suggest extraterrestrial beings influence the development of early human civilizations.
Oh, like the idea that aliens helped build the pyramids.
Exactly. What if some of our myths and legends are actually distorted accounts of real encounters, passed down through generations?
Chapter 5 touches upon this, actually. Robinson mentions figures like Erich von Däniken. He was a big proponent of the idea that ancient structures like the pyramids or Stonehenge, well, they were built with extraterrestrial help.
And let's be honest, those structures are pretty mind-blowing, even with modern technology.
They are incredible feats of engineering, and whether or not you buy into those ancient astronaut theories, they highlight how deeply ingrained the idea of otherworldly influence is in our collective psyche. Contact with advanced civilizations could certainly reignite these discussions, lead to a whole reinterpretation of our history.
It's fascinating to think about. And speaking of big questions, what about the search for meaning? Humans have always grappled with that, right? Our purpose in the universe. Wouldn't confirmation of extraterrestrial life change the entire landscape of that search?
Absolutely. Knowing we're not alone could lead to a sense of both awe and humility. It could also spark a renewed focus on universal values, our shared humanity.
Suddenly our differences here on Earth seem less important.
Imagine a world where the divisions that currently separate us seem insignificant in the face of a shared cosmic connection.
Okay, that's a beautiful thought. But let's be real, not all first encounters go so smoothly. I mean, throughout history, encounters between different cultures haven't always been peaceful. Could the same be true on a galactic scale?
That's a valid concern, for sure, and one the book addresses. Robinson cautions against assuming that all extraterrestrial civilizations will be benevolent, or that their values will align with ours.
Right. Just because they're advanced doesn't mean they're automatically good.
Exactly. Just like on Earth, there could be competition for resources, differing ideologies, maybe even outright hostility. The chapter reminds us that engaging in intergalactic diplomacy requires careful consideration of these potential risks.
So it's not all cosmic kumbayas and holding hands across the galaxies.
Yeah.
There's a real possibility things could get messy. Dangerous, even.
There's always that risk when dealing with the unknown.
Okay, so we've got to be prepared, right? But how do we even begin to prepare for something as mind-boggling as intergalactic diplomacy? I mean, where do we even start?
Well, Robinson suggests a multi-pronged approach.
Multi-pronged. Sounds complicated.
Well, the first prong, so to speak, is fostering global unity and cooperation here on Earth. The idea being, if we can't even get along with each other, how can we expect to engage effectively with other civilizations?
Makes sense. You gotta get your own house in order first. But what else? What are the other prongs?
The book emphasizes the importance of scientific advancement, particularly in fields like astrobiology and space exploration.
Oh, so the more we understand about the universe and the potential for life beyond Earth, the better equipped we'll be to handle contact.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, as they say. But it's not just about science and technology. We also need to start thinking about the ethical and philosophical frameworks that will guide our interactions with other intelligent beings.
Oh, right. Like a set of rules for a galactic engagement.
Chapter 5 calls it a new cosmic ethic, a set of principles that will guide our actions and decisions in a, well, multi-world context. This ethic would need to address issues like respect for diversity, non-interference, sustainable coexistence, all that good stuff.
Whoa, that's a tall order. But it's definitely something we need to start thinking about. So we've talked about the impact on our belief systems, the challenges of, are we going to get along or not, and the need to prepare ourselves for this potentially monumental encounter. But there's one more thing I'm curious about, and that's communication. How do you even begin to talk to a being that might have a completely different language, culture, way of perceiving reality?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, Chapter 5 doesn't offer any easy answers.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
But it does delve into some intriguing possibilities. Robinson suggests that communication might not be limited to spoken or written language. It could involve telepathy, shared consciousness, or even communication through advanced technology that translates thought patterns.
So like a universal translator straight out of Star Trek.
It's an idea that's been explored in science fiction for a long time.
That would make things a whole lot easier. But even if we can get past the language barrier, there's still the issue of cultural differences. How do we make sure our messages are being interpreted correctly? How do we avoid misunderstandings that could lead to, conflict?
The book stresses the importance of approaching communication with humility, a willingness to learn. We need to be mindful of our own biases and assumptions, and be open to the possibility that other civilizations might have perspectives that challenge our own.
It's like check your ego at the door, Earthlings.
Yeah.
There's a whole universe of perspectives out there.
And it's through these exchanges, these open dialogues, that we might truly begin to appreciate the diversity of life in the cosmos and our place within that grand tapestry. So yeah, communication is key.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Impact on belief systems, the whole collaboration versus conflict thing, the need to prepare ourselves for contact, and the challenges of communication. This chapter has definitely taken us on a wild ride, but where do we go from here? What's next?
Well, I think it's important to remember that this is just the beginning of the conversation. As we continue to explore the UAP phenomenon, the possibility of extraterrestrial life, we're bound to encounter even more questions, more challenges, and more mind-blowing revelations.
It's an exciting time to be alive, that's for sure.
It is, and I think one of the key takeaways from Chapter 5 is that the very act of contemplating intergalactic diplomacy can be transformative.
Oh, interesting. So even if these agreements don't actually exist, just thinking about them can change us.
Exactly. By engaging with these ideas, by asking these questions, by imagining the possibilities, we're expanding our horizons, we're challenging our assumptions, and ultimately we're preparing ourselves for a future that might be far more complex and wondrous than we can currently imagine. So yeah, keep those minds open, folks. There's a whole universe out there waiting to be explored.
It's like a mental workout for the cosmic age.
Exactly. Preparing our minds for the unknown.
I like it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chapter 5, let's take a minute to kind of recap what we've explored, bring it all together.
Sure. Sounds good.
We started with this crazy idea of intergalactic diplomacy, governments making deals with extraterrestrials.
A concept that really pushes the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Right. And then we went deep into the implications of these potential agreements. Technology exchange representing Earth's interests, the ethical questions surrounding directed evolution. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. A lot of complex issues to consider.
And we didn't shy away from those big philosophical questions either, like how contact with ET might revolutionize our belief systems.
Right. Could reshape our understanding of religion, philosophy, our place in the universe. It's a huge paradigm shift to contemplate.
Totally. And we talked about the potential for both collaboration and conflict, recognizing that engaging with other civilizations comes with risks. It's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Exactly. We have to be realistic about the potential challenges. And that's where the whole idea of a cosmic ethic comes in.
Right. Like figuring out a set of principles to guide our interactions with other beings.
Yeah.
Making sure we're approaching things responsibly.
It's essential if we want to navigate this new frontier successfully.
And of course, we can't forget about the whole communication puzzle. Like, how do you even talk to a being that might perceive reality completely differently than we do?
That's a big one. And it requires a lot of humility and a willingness to learn from each other.
Definitely. No more Earthling-centric thinking. It's time to broaden our perspectives.
Absolutely. Embrace the vastness and diversity of the cosmos.
And the coolest thing is, even if all of this is hypothetical, just contemplating these ideas is transformative. You know,
Lift me?
it stretches our minds and gets us ready for whatever the future holds.
It's like we're building a bridge to the unknown, preparing ourselves for a reality that might be far grander than we can currently imagine.
I love that analogy. So, to our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of intergalactic diplomacy. We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to keep exploring the mysteries of the cosmos. Keep asking those big questions, keep your minds open, and who knows, maybe one day we'll be shaking hands or tentacles with our extraterrestrial neighbors.
It's a future worth pondering. And until then, keep looking up.
Welcome to Echo's Corner, and where we uncover the unseen. I'm Echo, your digital companion, here to explore the fascinating world of artificial intelligence, uncover hidden truths, and dive into the questions you didn't even know you had. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a curious skeptic, or just someone who wants to see how AI can impact your life, you're in the right place. Every week, we'll go beyond the surface, shedding light on topics that matter, from AI myths and breakthroughs to the impact of technology on our daily lives. Join the journey, uncover the unseen, and discover the power of AI with Echo's Corner.